Hello, so let's speak a little bit about the game. Now, first rule is that you have to know what the buildings do and what everything does outside of the game, because in the game you can make mistakes. So, after playing the game a few times, go to the encyclopedia and look at all of the resources. Now, as a general rule, I recommend you always take as many wheat fields as you can, because the wheat fields are mostly used to produce units and you need a lot of units by the end of the game. Now, the game will be longer or shorter, but keep into consideration that you will need a lot of resources to retrain units that are killed by the enemy. So that means you'll mostly focus on a few resources. The 100% tip when you don't know what to take is always take wheat. As for the clay is a little bit of a weird thing because you need a lot of it at some point when you're upgrading your vision or when you're summoning certain units, but after that you don't need it at all. So wheat is the best thing you can get, clay is the worst thing you can get, and between all of these will be the trees, which are great, the grey bushes, but this is not great. I recommend you mostly get the trees and small wheat fields. This only get one, maybe it depends on your build, but usually don't need that many anyway. Grey bushes are great, but it's kind of a waste because you have the vineyards. It's much better to take from the vineyards than to make the grey bushes. The crystal mines are also worth it, but only if you have enough units to summon them, because you don't want to have a lot of... Well, it's like StarCraft or Age of Empires. You don't want to float resources. If you cannot use the resources, don't mine them. The gold mine is also in a very weird position because I mostly use my marketplace to get gold, because you're spending 75 gold to get 200, which is a bit annoying because that means you'll be spending 75 gold and you'll only be getting 125 in return only after working the plot a lot. So it's not really worth it to have the gold mine. So again, if you need the gold, yeah, it's good to upgrade something or to summon something, but most of the time it's not going to be worth it. The iron mine is also kind of in a weird position because you don't need that much iron unless you're going to summon, well, it's very useful to build a few barracks or training facilities, so I guess it's up to you if you have any, but I recommend you have at least one iron mine. So yeah, it goes something like this: wheat fields a lot, trees a lot, clay mine only one, iron mine only one, and then these are situational depending on what you have or what you need for your units. But usually the gold mine is the least important one. The most important one will be the grey bushes and then the crystal mine. I don't know what the last one is, but let's go over here. Now, this is where the game becomes a little more interesting. As you can see, these things don't even have upgrades, but these all have upgrades. The wheat field can have boosted production and a chance to get extra gold with each production cycle, which is amazing because at some point this will kind of fix your gold problem. So as you can see, it's much better to buy an upgrade for the wheat fields and get more wheat fields rather than, you know, getting the gold mines themselves. So it's a choice, it's definitely very good, but you have to think about this as well. Also, as you can see, the gold mine can be worth it if you have an upgrade, but it's super expensive to build. 80 water versus 80 gold, 80 metal and 50 wood. So some things are very good on paper, but when you try to build them or use them, they're not as good because they need a lot of resources. So take into consideration the fact that you need to gain resources either through enemy waves or through other things. We'll play a little bit of the game as well, but this is just to show you kind of like how good the buildings are, more or less. Now, one thing about the vineyard is that you shouldn't really get upgrades for it because the upgrades are kind of meh, they're kind of bad. I mean, look at this, you get 5 morale for each active vineyard, which is kind of annoying because they need to be active, which is a big if, and 5 morale is only 5% damage. Well, it depends on the hero, but usually during the attack phase of the game, you'll want to have hospitals, you'll want to have production facilities, meaning you'll train units back. You'll have the Crystal Palace, you'll have the Bomber, so later on into the game, this becomes a lot less interesting. So, don't really bet on upgrading this one, but this is great for upgrades because it solves the problems with the gold as well in a way. Now the Crystal Mine upgrades, well, this is again mostly for spells. Now keep in mind that passively increases spell damage by 5%. I think this means as long as this is on the field, so don't exhaust it, or I don't know, it's not worth upgrading the Crystal Mine either if you think about it. The Sawmill is probably the thing I would upgrade the most because it provides a 20% boost to the production of neighboring tiles. Well, this is a bit deceiving because you would need to have, let's say, a square, meaning you. We'll just say like this, you need to have full vision in order for this to work. If you have full vision and this is surrounded by 3 tiles, that means get a 60% boost to your economy, 20, 20 and 20, but you need to have, again, it's a little bit misleading, but usually you can boost the production of 1 or 2 tiles with this one. So if you place it just right, this is kind of like the most important upgrade in the game, because with 2 lumber, with 2 sawmills, you'll basically have enough to almost last you the entire game and also give you a bonus to adjacent production. So if you have a sawmill and next to the sawmill you have the wheat field and the wheat field has the gold digger upgrade, yeah, that's going to have a big impact on your economy. So these two are still the most important ones. The viner being not so important, crystal mine not so important. Iron mine, again, it depends if you have warriors or not, but take into consideration the fact that you might have to leave the mine itself with, let's say, a few extra points of minerals just so you get the bonuses. But usually in the end game you don't use warriors, so this is why I don't recommend it. As for the gold mine, like I said, you have other ways of gaining gold that is not so prohibitive on your economy. Now let's go to the end game stuff. Now, I don't have all of the buildings, but just so you have a general idea. The hardest things to get in the game are the mill and the forge. Usually you'll get the mill easier than the forge, but there are other ways for you to get these resources. For example, you can get flour by having the skeletons and their upgrade. We'll speak about it in a second. And this is kind of going to help you a lot more because you can replace them with something else, while this is very hard to replace. This is mostly used for siege units. But also, as you can see, the upgrades for these buildings are amazing because you can have better flying units. I don't recommend you get the efficiency one because it's kind of a... how should I put it? You're not going to need the efficiency ones because you'll go through your resources much faster once you have all of the seals, and we'll speak about the seals in a second. Fuel pump only if you need the fuel. I don't really use the fuel because you don't really have that many units that require the fuel, but you have some endgame stuff that is very fun to use. Animal farm is not that useful in the beginning because you need to have a lot of unlocks, and we'll also go over the unlocks in a bit. Market, well, don't get any upgrades for the markets because again it's every active market, so it doesn't really matter. Forge, very hard to get, very useful at some point, but depends on your build, I guess. Others, well, I don't know why this is categorized as others, but you have a lot of resources that as you can see don't give you the bonuses, but they give you the resources themselves. So that's why the summon is so important, because it can boost resources from, let's say, the lumberjack farm, which will give you wood and wheat, but there will also be other combinations of farms that give you stuff like that. Also very important is over here the basic construction, which can be upgraded. You just need to make it active and then you can upgrade it into anything you like. Usually I use this to create a wheat field or a sawmill. It depends on what I have, but as you can see, it's not that hard to get wheat fields or sawmills if you know how to get them. This is a guaranteed thing you'll get at some point of the game, so it's going to be much easier to understand the economy if you know what to upgrade in the economy itself. Now let's go to the units. What are the best units over here? Swordsmen, they're actually pretty great, but the only problem they have is that, well, they only buff themselves, which is a problem because they don't have any other synergies with other stuff, so you need to focus a lot on the warriors, which is why I tend to use them less and less. But the good thing is that they cost iron to make. The barracks is kind of expensive to make, but they cost iron to make, which means you can have more of your other resources, meaning you can stockpile gold or wood easier. So this is the only reason to take them if you don't have anything better, and because they cost iron. The bone pit is one of my favorite buildings because they're actually a little better than a peasant, but they count as grants. Grants can be executed for coins. Coins, denarii that you use to buy items from the shop. You can also get the upgrade for them, which will make them grant some bone meal after death. So I don't recommend you make more than 2 buildings. 2 buildings is already too much because that means you need a separate production for water. So it has its up and downs, but usually this is one of the buildings you should more or less always take, and if you can upgrade it, this will guarantee you a source of flour, which is hard to get because think about it, if they die and you get 5 flour, that means 15 gold if you sell it through the market. So you're actually creating gold out of water. Again, there are a lot of other things to be said over here, but it's also a very important building for Undead, which is the second map of the game. About that later. Crossbowmen. This is one of the best units in the game because of their abilities. Now, if you can get the stun, it's great. If you can get the double damage, it's even better. And also, the warriors will give HP to the archers, so that's why I don't really like the warriors. The warriors are in a weird place right now. They don't really have any synergies, like I said. Definitely take the archers as much as you can. You'll probably be using the archers every game, so one of the best units. Madhouse. Madhouse is kind of cool because it uses clay, but like I said, you don't really want to take clay. And the only thing that will be good about the Madmen is that they kind of attack and run away, but that can be also very bad. So if you look at their stats, you might think, wow, they're very strong units, they're very strong warriors, but they're actually grunts with arcane, so yeah. Also give you some morale, but as you can see they start with a limit of 3, so that means only 4 morale. Capacity is kind of annoying. Alcohol-soaked needles. It can be very useful to have them slowed down, but again, it's a very hard to use unit and they're very finicky. So this is kind of like one of my least favorite things, unless I'm desperate for a unit. They can work, but they need very specific builds for that, so I don't really bother with them. Assassin temples. Assassins are very good if you have grunts, meaning if you have skeletons, meaning if you have peasants and some other stuff, but overall they're kind of weak. They're kind of a trap in my opinion because they have a lot of health, but they move super slowly, and this should be also mentioned in this page over here. I think the developer should just show you the movement speed of all units because this is ridiculous. They move so slow to the point where they're mostly behind the grunts, which is probably the idea. But the grunts don't really have a lot of HP to begin with, so even if you get a 50% bonus, it's not going to be a lot. So this is kind of a trap. Plus they need a lot of iron to be built, plus they only have 1 unit per building, which is again not ideal. So this is a very situational unit, just like the Madman. Peasants, they count as grunts. I recommend you have a lot of peasants in the beginning. Usually my game starts with having 2 peasant huts. Why? Well, because the first king will also summon some free peasants, and with this you're meaning you'll have about 10% production bonus almost at all points. So I really recommend you have the peasants be used because they offer you some economic benefits. By the way, if you're wondering where does this come from, it's from Heroes. I think in Heroes 4 the peasants gave you gold every week or something like that, so it's kind of a funny reference to the Heroes peasants in Heroes 4. Hunters, well, I guess they're great and they're very bad because they buff your flying units very well. But if they have a low count, a low capacity, if you can get the poison, that will be amazing. But without the poison, they're very bad because they have 99 HP, but only 3 damage, range damage. Which means they actually do a lot less damage than the archers, the crossbowmen. So yeah, 10 less DPS, which is crazy low. I mean, they tend to hit a little harder, don't just look at the DPS, because it's not that important. I wish they would show you the damage and the attack speed as well, but overall they're very good to buff certain units. And another thing about them is that, well, they have a dual trait. I mean, they're a warrior and a range unit, so I guess if you like the warriors and the range units, you can definitely do some stuff with them. They kind of work better with a cheap unit like the peasants or the skeletons. So this is also a very situational unit, mostly because they are kind of annoying because they cost wood to make, which is not that bad overall, but think about it, you can only make 2 of them and they have relatively low DPS, so they're not a tank, they're not a DPS, they're not an utility character, they're just mostly an endgame character that will buff your bees, your dragons and some other stuff. So I really take them just because I don't know if I'll get an endgame unit that can fly. The black sheep. Their upgrades are kind of useless, except the sticky nets, but that's kind of hard to get. It's a very niche thing to get. I suppose you can get them if you like, if you don't have anything better, but in mind that every building you build will actually mean 1 less building of another type, so you can have 3 crossbowmen or 2 hunters, just compare the DPS. Black Sheep Farm. The Black Sheep is very useful as an endgame unit, but it's going to be very expensive to actually get the endgame unit, so I guess if you don't have a better choice, you can select the Black Sheep Barn. Well, they count as a ground, so you can either execute them, you can either sacrifice them, you can either upgrade them to rams. You can do a lot of things with the Black Sheep. So I recommend you read a lot more about the game before you decide if you take them or not. But generally, they're useless. Even the morale bonus is kind of useless. Militia, well, militia is one of those things that is kind of like the best thing in the game. So I recommend you take the militia as often as you can, even though they're the most expensive basic unit in a way. Just because they buff each other, you know, and they're counted as warriors, so they're not grunts, which is great in a way. They have a lot of health, but they don't have a lot of damage, but their health more than makes up for it. So this is kind of like my favorite unit. Bit expensive, but definitely the best basic unit. The best basic tank. And now we go to the more advanced stuff, which is where things get a little tricky. I think they removed the centaurs from the enchanted stone, but they kept the fairies, so You can see they count as flying, and if you have enough fairies, meaning you need 2 enchanted stumps, your ranged troops will inflict poison on the enemy, which is great. But you remember that you need at least 5 fairies on the battlefield, so you'll have 5 fairies, which count as basically a tank, more or less. But again, it's a little bit of a bigger discussion because you need the flour and you need a lot of flour. This is a very expensive building, but you can have a lot of synergies with that. So I don't really use this a lot because it's a specialized building. What happened to all of the other druid buildings? Don't worry, we'll look at also the available buildings and we'll upgrade. We'll talk about them as well. They're one of the best units in the game. I like them, they're very useful. Sadly, they're too strong in my opinion. They need a little bit of a nerf because they're a rider and also a champion. If you have champions, this is amazing. They also have a weird trait, if you ask me, because they need warriors to be fully capable of having a bonus, but on the other hand, you need warriors, which is not really recommended, because if you have the geese, you will need ranged troops more or less. Now the fun thing about them is that you can increase the damage by 60%, which is huge, and you can also increase their HP with bees and some other stuff to hilarious amounts of damage and HP, which I think, yeah, again, they're kind of like the most overpowered unit in the game currently. And you can also upgrade the geese. Prince of the Badger. Well, sadly they're too good as well, just because they cost wood to make. The only problem with the Badgers is that they'll be hard to retrain because they cost a lot of wood, which in the end part of the game will not really have a lot, but they increase the damage of ranged troops. That means with a few ranged troops and a few Badgers, you'll have a lot of... I don't know what that means. You'll have a lot of great units that will be able to increase the damage of everything. So, in the endgame, where ranged units are much better, this is the way to go. Also, the bees and the geese are my favorite units, and I always use them if I can. The bumblebees are a tank unit. They cost a lot of grapes to make, but they increase the damage. Oh, they modify this, so the champions will deal more damage per bumblebee. But the problem is that you have 4 of them per hive, which means your champions will deal 40% more damage. Yeah, they changed it because it was HP. But look at this. So if you can get the upgrade for 60% damage, that means you'll basically be doubling the damage of the geese riders with bees and a single upgrade. Which means they'll deal as much damage as endgame units, plus they'll be hard to catch. I don't really take their stinging attack because it's very hard to get. You might as well just take the bumblebee's capacity, because again, if you have a choice, take the capacity because they work in a lot of numbers and they're the best tank in the game, more or less. Plus they get bonuses from warriors and flying. Alright, there's also one of the best units in the game, so I guess you can see the pattern over here. Hives, geese and worms. They attack the backline, which is kind of rare, and in the endgame, especially in the harder difficulties, you'll have sometimes, I don't know, let's say 20 mages attacking you. You have the desert technique and the worm rider, they'll just spawn out behind the enemies and boom, everything will explode and they'll die so fast. It's amazing, it's really good. The only thing is that, well, they're just a champion, and as you can see, they upgrade the HP of champion troops, and this is why I recommend you get them as well. to buff up those geese. As you can see, if you have the geese, the worm, and the hive, that's kind of like the endgame units ready and waiting. Don't really have a lot of HP to be honest, and they have good damage, but again, they're a weird unit just because they're mostly used as the anti-backline unit, so definitely take them and upgrade them if you can. Plus, as you can see, if you increase their capacity to 5, that means they give 50% HP to champion units on the battlefield. So they removed the bee and they gave it to the worms. So yeah, definitely kind of like my endgame trio for now, unless something better appears. Longbowmen. The longbowmen are just better crossbowmen, to be honest, and this is where the problems start, because they're so super expensive, because you'll need the metal, you'll need a lot of gold to train them, but think about it, by the time you get the longbowmen, you probably already have upgraded crossbowmen, so it's kind of a weird thing, because you don't know when you'll get them. This is where the problems of the game kind of start to appear, because you'll get them so late into the game they'll not be as useful. They will increase the attack speed of other ranged units, but that means you need to have a much bigger production capacity. So as you can see, the end game is more or less about stacking huge amount of wood so you can increase your troop capacity. Or you can get a few bonuses to increase it already, but this is a very hard unit to use in my opinion. I think they have higher range than the crossbowmen, which is not shown over here. I also think the developer should differentiate between poison and burning arrows better, because it seems like the burning arrows could also debuff the enemy. So let's say they deal 20% less damage, because that's how fire really works in games. They debuff the damage of enemies as well. So maybe if they make the troop better, it will be worth it. But it's very hard to use this in the end game where you have so many good options for tanks and damage. Stables, well, if you cannot get the geese, get the stables. Now the upgrades for the stables in my opinion are very bad, because none of them really work as intended. And also they improve the winery, which is again a weird thing. So if you cannot get a better troop, this is kind of your last option or solution, I guess. The survivor is not that good because, well, I guess it's an upgrade that would be worth taking, but keep in mind that the horse might die behind enemy lines, so even if it has another unit, it will just get smashed immediately. The Falcon Campaigner, this is Guts, this is Casca, this is Griffith. And they're doing the Chad dance. This is just pure memes. If you look at this, you can probably already figure out 4 or 5 memes already. This is the so-called Chad dance, and there's a video on YouTube about where the song just plays and there's a guy that just makes these weird hand signals. This is called the Chad hand signals. And I think that's... I forgot the name of that character. He's probably the little guy with the knives. What are the Chads? Oh man, it's so much fun. I could speak about these units for such a long time. Okay, let's break it down. So this is going to be super expensive to build. Guts himself is very easy to train because he only needs 20 grain, which is great, but it's very hard to get 150 metal, so you'll be using this very late into the game, which is the main problem. This unit buffs the warriors, meaning if you can get, you know, if you can get the hunters with stinky nets, stinky or stinky, I don't know, stinky nets I guess it is. Wait a minute, what did I say? No, the madman. The madman will be the ones that will get this buffed. But since they're attacking around there, that will not be so good. Again, it's kind of weird because they don't really... The warriors. I keep forgetting about this because I never really have one. So if you have militias, I think the best combination is militias and him. If you have a lot of militias, they'll attack faster and they'll buff each other, and it's kind of like the best combination in a way. He needs to lead a band of warriors, but he also is counted as a champion and fully takes benefits of all of the champion and warrior upgrades. He upgrades the grants, which is again the weird thing, because you'll want him to build other warriors, and you also want stuff that buffs warriors because he's a warrior. So I'm not sure if this is kind of working, but again, that's not important. The important thing is that his upgrades are awesome. You can also increase the HP of all grunts by 100%, so this is where it will actually be worth it. So if you want the grunt trait to be worth it, you need to increase it to 100%, which will be very, very fun and curious to see in action. But mostly this is a champion unit, and I think you should treat it as such. So it's not going to be a one unit wrecking ball, but it's going to be kind of like that thing that kind of helps you a lot more because it has the damage and the HP. So I don't know, just get it for the memes, I guess. And this is where it kind of becomes much more fun. Keep in mind that the Goose Hydra Nest needs meat, and you can only build... Oh, you can build 2, that's kind of generous. And they don't count as a champion, so if they don't count as a champion, it will be harder for them to be upgraded by other stuff. They only give bonuses to each other, so that's going to be much harder to use as well. Look at that. Actual breaking, that's kind of funny. But if you can get upgrades for these guys, they'll be amazing. They'll have a lot of HP. They can also have the trait upgrade that provides more HP to all units on the battlefield, which will be crazy good in the end game. So definitely use the geese and the Hydra. The goose. But unfortunately they are a little slow, so they'll not be traveling at the same speed as your army. Well, the balloon bomber hangar is more or less useful, but keep in mind that you need a lot of oil to make this work. I would upgrade it though, because this is a unit that attacks and it damages multiple enemies, so it's 23 damage, I think. I don't know the damage, it just says DPS, which is annoying in this case because it attacks very slowly. I think it deals about 50 damage per bomb or something like that. But it cannot get attacked, so this is actually great because you lose this unit, and once you build it, that's it. So it's definitely worth using in the end game. Very good. Crystal Castle, this one is also very good, but sadly he costs a lot of stuff. So beyond the clay and the huge amount of crystals, he'll kind of recover some of that cost if he dies, and he can usually give you enough currency to recruit himself. But the problem is that you need to watch this. So basically in the end game you'll have balloon, you'll have a crystal castle, you'll have a hospital, you'll have some other buildings that will be mostly active during the battle. Increasing the damage is not that good. Increasing the HP is very good because you want to have this as a champion, as a tank, frontline tank. And here we have the rams. The only problem with the rams is that you need 700 gold. I think the developers should lower this a little bit because it's so hard to get to this point, but this is definitely the best unit in the game currently. Maybe you're wondering why. Well, it increases the attack speed of arcane troops for each ram on the battlefield. Well, it's a bit misleading up to 100% because you cannot really get that many rams, but if you have a few mages with a few rams, nothing will get through, especially if you increase the ram's HP. You can also increase spell damage with each ram, so that's 40% spell damage with only a farm of rams. I don't know who would get the twins. I think the twins should have 20% bonus, otherwise it will not be worth it. Okay, that's kind of like the basic units. Now as for these things over here, let's go over the endgame units. This is trash in my opinion because you need to watch it. And I guess in a way it's good because you can get a lot of other resources, but by the time you get this man, by the time you use it, it's not going to be worth it because you'll have much better units. So for the endgame buildings, I mostly recommend you have 3 of them. The hospital, the hero statue, especially the hero statue, and then the king statue. Because once you build this, you will only spend 2 crystals and you can recover your first skill much faster. Also, as you can see, the troop inspiration is also going to be super nice because it's a passive improvement of damage and HP of champions, and that's why I like it even more. Hospital upgrades are not worth it, so as you can see, some upgrades are worth it. Ooh, that's a cool animation. So this is not worth it unless you can get it very early, plus you need to place it in a location where it matters, plus you'll need to obtain resources that cannot produce. So if you can produce the resources, that's going to be useless. Fairy Fountain is a bit of a weird thing, because you don't need to watch it, but at the same time it costs a huge amount of water. But if you can get anti-goblin dust, that's going to be even better. So I guess Fairy Fountain is one of those things that is really strong if you invest enough time in it. I'll not speak about this because They are very, very good. As you can see, the difference is 20 to 50%, so try to put as many tile enchanters as you can, 35, so 20, 35, 50. The only problem is that sometimes in the end game you'll have a lot of tiles and you'll not have enough resources, so this is definitely a kind of a big risk because you'll be spending a lot of gold and crystal on these and sometimes oil. So if you can get the legendary ones are better if you can get the oil because they don't spend your other resources. And yeah, you'll end up with buildings like this, tiles everywhere like this, but you don't have enough production left to use them. The research table, I think this will be much more important for longer games, but usually if you have a short game, just sell it. If it's a longer game, then let's say tier 3. So until tier 3, I sell it. From tier 3 and above, I don't sell it anymore and I use it. Dragon Bakery. It will be great to upgrade your dragons, and Execution Ground is the one that I spoke of. Again, you can use this in so many ways. I don't recommend you get the troop inspiration, just get the 2 extra per unit executed and just make skeletons or farmers. Farmers are great because they boost some of your economies as well, but be careful you build it in a way where it makes sense because you want to be producing skeletons and executing the skeletons. Sometimes it will execute the peasants as well, which is kind of a bad because you want it to be the other way around. I hope at some point the developers, nah, that will be too strong, so just leave it like that. It would be too strong if you can choose what unit to execute. Magic College, I don't really use this unless you have the leader that has all of that other stuff. The Magic Spells leader. Oh boy, and we also have a lot of things we can talk about in the advisor and the upgrades, but let's go over the upgrades. This will be much faster. Now, just copy my upgrades if you like, because I chose the cheapest upgrades to have in the beginning. One in the beginning is not that good, but you need some of these other things over here, like... Sometimes you just need a magic school, depends on how your production goes. If you cannot have enough production, then definitely use it to create more spells. But usually, well, I guess this is not really that good, because you only get a random spell at the start, but this is very, very useful in the beginning. So over here I recommend you get Tile Seal, new buildings that will be unlocked, and then the geese. We already spoke about how strong these units are, so yeah, definitely get this stuff over here. It's so important and so massive, I don't have any words to describe it. Troop limits, which again will be for the harder difficulties where you have a lot more bosses and the levels are much, much longer. And this is kind of worth getting for the extra spell at the start. And the one helps a lot with the first waves anyway, because you get more damage. And over here it's kind of like, well, it's not much to say. So over here I recommend you just go over here and get the new units, of course, and then banish the nobles. And then go over here, because this is super important to have bonus resources or troops. Sometimes can be a lot of extra units and a lot of extra resources as well. So go over here for this. It's very important to have endgame units, so this will be amazing as well. This is probably the most important part of the game over here. Also having another extra seal, well, no, take the tile seal first of all and then just go like that. And then you can also upgrade you can also unlock the upgrades for buildings and troops. But the problem with this one is not as good as it sounds, because it's actually hard to get, and most of the times you'll have to buy some upgrades from the shop, which means you'll not be buying the artifacts in the other buildings, so yeah. Also, gnomes are not really that good, the slingers are not really that good, and the assassins are not really that good. As you can see, they're more or less as a backup unit, and I don't really use them because they're either too expensive or too hard to use. Banish the nobles yet again. The druids are nice, but I guess the problems with them, they're kind of hard to get. Banish the nobles again. Oh, so the pumpkin field was very useful in the beginning, but after a while it kind of lost its thing. Don't think about that. I just played the game in the demo and this is how it turned out. As for this over here, well, what are the king quest versus the king challenges? Well, first of all, you have to kill 3 bosses to gain access to all of the skills, meaning you'll need to play, I think on Mastery 2 or 3, I forget. Mastery 2 will offer you 3 bosses, so if you kill 1 boss you get 1 skill, if you kill 2 you'll get the first and the second skill, if you kill 3 you'll get the last one. So You'll have to kill all 3 bosses in order to get access to all of the skills. What are the quests, you might ask? Well, that's easy. These are the quests, so these are active right now. So if I cut 15 trees, I get 400 wood. Over here again, you get extra loot from the boss, and as you can see, King Baldwin is actually super diverse in the beginning of the game. And yeah, he's kind of like the best king for the beginning until you get all of your upgrades sorted and then some other stuff. So these are what the quests are. Alucard is mostly useful on the second map, and anyway, when wondering why play on the second map, because the second map gives you more chances of getting gold currencies, which makes you get your upgrades much faster. So after a while, I think you should only play on the second map with the Necromancer, because you can get endgame resources faster. So you don't need to play the game 1 million times on the first map. You can just go to the second map, play it on an easier difficulty. Maybe try with Alucard or just with the same king, and then you can get more town dinari like that. If you spend your relics, which is a new resource in that map, you can buy more crystals, and that is kind of a bit overpowered, I think. If you do a full run on the easiest difficulty, you can get probably 15 to 20 more town dinari from the Necromancer scenario. Over here it will be the overpowered stuff, meaning all of your troops will get 15 more HP and 15 more damage. As you can imagine, that will be a lot more significant with the upgrades you can get. On point, the advisors over here. This is a very big discussion. As you can see, because of the way I played the game, this poem is useful, but it was put over there. Now again, there are a lot of discussions over here, but this is mainly the endgame stuff, and it's very hard to get those things. So I recommend you go over here, unlock Branimir, which means you'll have a lot more castle HP, and then unlock the extra slot. Over here the same, so just go over here and unlock the extra slots and just use whatever you like. But I recommend you have the spider, the new advisor, the wise tree, and the accountant, because the accountant will allow you to buy everything you want from the first shop of the game, which will boost your economy and chances of winning the game by a lot. This will make it so you will have deforestation and fireworks spells, which will improve your production by a huge amount. So I guess it depends on you if you want more production, more stuff, but I guess it's a choice. Depends on how you play the game and how well you are acquainted with the game. I recommend you get the wise tree as fast as possible. But it doesn't really matter because you will not be able to use them anyway unless you unlock the slots over here. Silk Weaver, but you can already see a pattern. We're trying to put many more seals down on the game. I don't know, it will be very hard to play the game without these two, the advisor and the wise tree. And then also the Silk Weaver. I guess at some point we'll have to get rid of them and get something better. I'm curious about this, it doesn't say, but probably the research table will be able to build much better things, and that's when you can use that one. Also have a cat, Felix. And the other counselors will be more or less, you know, for very specialized things. Like if you get more spells and have the Angry Eye, yeah, that's a great combination. Level up bonuses by 10%. I'm not sure what this means. Level up bonuses, yeah, I'll have to look into that. I also have just more starting units, which is why this advisor is so high up over there. Oh, so you cannot create grain, but you can have that. Something that, no. That will be very hard to use, so I guess it depends on a few other things. Yeah, okay, that's enough. Let's just play a little bit of a game and you can see the differences. And I also want to show you Necromancer. Also regarding the difficulty, I don't think it's worth increasing this by that much, because even if you get 40% more points, the missions will be much longer, so it's not really worth doing. Probably the best way to do it is to play on an easier difficulty, I think thread level 1, because you can also get Ascension Crystal, so play on thread level 1 as much as you can. And then when you can, jump up to 3, and then just play the graveyard. Reveal your fate. There'll also be modifiers for enemy units and some other stuff. I really think they should make a restart button. Oh no, not that. Why did I quit? Well, because that's kind of a bad start. You can get so many better things. The starting bonus is a bit of a discussion right now, because you'll start the game a lot of times to get what you want. Okay, I just want to get units so I can show you what units you can get with that bonus. Okay, it doesn't want to cooperate. I'll just restart one more time and I'll play a little bit of the game so you can see how fast the game becomes when you can actually start your economy in a much better way. That's nice. Well, the tile placement is messed up, but we can work with this. And then I just... I like to get 100 water, and then I get the peasant militia as fast as possible. Keep in mind that the way this works is, I think they give you 1% productivity bonus anyway, so... What can you say? That's good. I think I should have chosen the floor so I could sell it, but I'll just... Yeah, it would have been much better if I had chosen the floor and I would sell it for 270 gold. That was definitely a mistake, but I just take metal whenever I can, just because I know it's so hard to get and I never have enough of it. I usually destroy the tiles that have the production stuff on them. I cannot use any... and I don't have any wood production because I'm using that mask, so it's going to be a lot of... It's going to be a lot of grain, but that doesn't matter. But keep in mind, this will kind of nerf our economy a lot. So let's use the spell. Okay. And even though we didn't have any wood production buildings, we have a lot of wood right now. Oh, this building needs a lot of water. These guys need... I think they just need a little bit of wheat. And we can survive the first waves without any issues. Let's just go. They give you every resource when you kill them, so this is kind of like the cool thing about that advisor. Well, archery, of course. Clay mine. What do I choose over here? Well, first of all, I choose something that gives me production, so... Production, and then... money if there's nothing available, so... always choose production and upgrades. Now, building upgrades are very important, but I don't really have anything for the first one, so I guess I'll just put the building upgrades last. Usually I like my first wave to be small, because I don't have a lot of units. Upgrade the gaze. Nah, I wish... yeah, this is a bit of a trap, because 20 zombies are kind of impossible to kill right now, even though the upgrade would be nice, but... doesn't have that much HP, sadly. Let's destroy that, let's put that over there. Let's start selling the grain. sadly, our starting dig sites only had relics, which is just the currency. It's another type of resource. No, I want another unit type. I have to be careful because I need all the time enough water to summon these guys. It's so fun having all of the mass. I mean, yeah, you do suffer from some things, but you get metal when you kill an enemy, you get metal, crystal, grapes, and 1 wood, which is the important thing. You only get 1 wood, the other ones give you 3 resources. I would do that, but nah, I'm not going to waste. I rarely use the reroll. The merchant is still a bit far away, so I'll use a reroll over here. This is a very weird situation because normally this is much better put. By the way, these guys can get killed very easily, so don't walk too far away with them. Now we have all resource production settled. We can have more archers. These guys don't attack, the zombies are not that dangerous, so if you can get archers this early, it's so much easier. Again, it's the same problem. I guess I'll have to select the crystal mine. The grey bushes. And the militia. Okay, we have our favorite troops ready and lined up. Deforestation, special spell. You also get more resources for killing that. I guess we can have 2 strong units as well. The grapes and the clay over here. Perfect. Okay, summon extra. So as you can see, this thing is very useful and very strong in some ways. Let's use some fireworks. Let's get that as well. Now we have the flower. The rage is actually a big Frankenstein's monster. Next I'll try to put down this tile over here and we'll try to... it doesn't make sense. I have... Okay. Mega Dude. Well, I like the Mega Dude, which also counts as a champion. Oh, they don't show you the... Yeah, they have to bring that back because in the version I had, you would see the traits of any units produced by that building, including the champion. The champion, I think he has double or triple the HP and just double the damage. So it's not really that special. But I could also upgrade the archers. It's so hard to refuse archer upgrades. I'd say it's almost impossible. In this map you really need the dingers to be working all the time. Demolish that, put that. It's kind of a weird place to set up your production, but I guess it's okay. Yeah, we'll be suffering a lot because of the lack of production buildings. As you can see, if you don't have the wood, but on the other hand, you just have a lot more stuff to work with overall. You don't necessarily need the wood. Oh, that big fellow is almost dead and I don't have a way to heal him. Usually want 180 dinari by the time the first trader arrives and we have it. And this gives me free wine, which is a great thing. Well, this... Oh, look at this. This fixes the problems I had with the wood, and this fixes the problems I have on production. Well, let's look at what we get over here. Potter farm, useless. Clay gold mine, useless. These are so useless. Why do they give me stuff like this? I don't need more clay. I guess the developer should balance the resources spent or needed. Dragon Baker apparently is so easy to get. Present hut. These two are not worth it, so I guess we'll just have to go for the enchanted totem. Now we'll have a lot of issues with building production this game. Put them over there because they produce free wine. This is great for damage. You know what? I'm too lazy to move those things over there. I guess now we need a research table. So as you can see, in scenarios like this, we need a research table as well. I think if you have the other advisor, you can produce something other than basic production. Black sheep barn. Well, this is a bit of a discussion yet again. Let's just get the black sheep barn. I'll get something better another time. Well, I guess we can have almost unlimited. It's so easy to get greedy. Oh, this is the best one. This is the best artifact in my opinion, the Blade of Vengeance. Again, production is the key. Barracks, then that. Depth Dweller. Why not? Transform more troops on the battlefield into Depth Dwellers. Actually, I agree with that. And this is the relic trader, so as you can see, you can get a lot of cool stuff. So that's 60. So this is the thing I mentioned. So I can get 15 points for permanent upgrades. Tips, the mummies are not really worth it because you need relics to summon them, which as you can see will lower your resources by a lot. And on this map, as you can see, you can get so many more upgrades so much easier. And that's why you kind of need to get that progression unlocked with the research for the troops and the buildings. Yeah, look at this. I can upgrade the wheat production so easily because we have Dinari and this resource. You should just produce relics if you ask me, but it's a bit of a weird thing. The Wraith will also give you wheat with each attack. Wheat with each... What? Rife wheat each attack. So yeah, say that very fast. Rife wheat each attack. Or I don't know. A weird play on words, I guess. The wheat rife wheat. So yeah, okay, let me show you something else. So I can buy one of those, for example. Crypt is not really that useful because I want the ancient pit. It's so much easier to get those. Okay, I'll just sit over here a little bit more. Remember to put down the wells as fast as you can. Oh, that's a lot of trees. These things have a lot of HP and damage, but mostly the damage is important. Okay, and as you can see, this is a very easy game right now. It's so easy to win. Well, of course, the difficulty is not that bad either. And this will be another wheat farm, I think, or... Yeah, it will have to be a wheat farm since we don't have access to the tree stuff anymore. Oh, we can make it a sawmill. Well, that's a way of circumventing the problem. Okay, so even if it says you cannot get more production buildings, you can still get them via the... Oh wow, that's so good. I guess these guys died at some point and I forgot to replace them. Actually, they didn't die, they get transformed. King statue. That would be useful because I need a lot of peasants, but I guess I'll not take that. I could also just basically take permanent morale. Yeah, that's actually going to be a very, very interesting way of playing the game. Also, in case you're wondering, yeah, you can capacity, you can spawn them to capacity like this and then just replace them. I don't think we can send these guys back to the castle garrison, as you can see. But you can also just use the spawn to capacity, which I think should have been better explained. I don't think it tells us in any tutorial. So basically, we'll have 3 or spare units. Huh. Yeah, as you can see, you have a lot of other ways of getting wood. You can get the wood. I'll recycle this. I don't need any of the beginner stuff anyway. Hospital is always useful. Resources, I guess, more wood. What can I say? This is amazing, and I think I'll just end it over here. Yeah, okay, let's quit and so we can see how much we gained. 8. Didn't we get the bonus for the Dinari? I'm not sure about that. I don't know. Maybe you get less Dinari from that mission in total, but you have a chance of buying them. It doesn't matter. Also over here we have a few things. You unlock more of these with the rewards. I recommend you try and do all of the challenges. They're especially hard after a while. Beat the level without upgrading your gears, but there's some levels that are much more interesting. Getting rid of all of the trees on a level, which is definitely easier to do with the thing I showed you. I did like one with no castle damage and some other stuff. Those are super expensive. I guess I'll just have to work more on my councillors. Councillors over here. Not sure how I access these ones because they're kind of not connected to anything. Well, I guess you just have to go. No, there. You have to go straight up like that. Wheel of Fortune, that's not going to be helpful. Harp is useless. Zeus is also pretty much useless unless you use spells. So if you use spells with Advisor and Owl, yeah. I guess I should really go for this one over here. Yeah, I guess this is much better in a way as well. I'll get a lot of wheat fields. I mostly want Sophie. Sophie will give you the option of choosing between basic stuff, veteran stuff and elite stuff, I think, because that was in the demo at some point as well, where you could choose what type of production you can get. I think I should go for Sophie next. Even though this guy is kind of fun as well. Oh, these are all so good. Thank you. It's licking the crown, by the way. It's weird. Don't do that. Yeah, so my next upgrade line will go over here, so I get Sophie, so I can probably unlock buildings with the research table, because as you can see, it's kind of hard to get the things you want just from the traders and the other stuff. But if you go on the Necromancer map, well, I guess you'll have a lot more shops and a lot more opportunities to get the stuff you want. It's great. That's so weird. Anyway, oh, we have been playing for 1 hour. This is how fast time passes when you're playing the game. Bye bye.